My wager is that the political big hitters will force the government to drop the ball, and that Buhari has lost too much grounds to lethargy to start pursuing all of Nigeria's big boys and girls who are sitting on illegitimate wealth. If he wanted to, he would have since he came into power. Game over. We shall see what happens in the days and weeks after the expiry of Nigeria's much-touted voluntary assets and income declaration scheme, VAIDS, which yielded a paltry and $20 billion out of a targeted and $350 billion or a mere $57 million out of a target of $1 billion, let's say 5.7%. That is the last figure in the public space, but one to be considered a huge failure if a child brings such a percentage as earned mark home in her report. We haven't considered how much was spent between the Ministry of Finance and the Federal Inland Revenue Service on the scheme, including on, I'm sure, foreign travels to understudy VAIDS-like schemes in other countries. It's Nigeria's age of impunity. Only the connected survive, but the rest of us are watching. The government has promised to come down hard on tax evaders who refuse to take advantage of the VAIDS arrangement, to come out clean and confess their sins. I have wondered whether Nigerians are that kind of people who will come out and confess their unpaid taxes. I have also wondered whether it is ever anything to a Nigerian to be named and shamed for evading taxes. I think we are too far gone for that. Even the person shouting about tax evasion is a tax evader. You know, one of Nigeria's musicians sang, "Even your boo, get a boo." That's the way it works. Do Nigerians really understand the word shame? Did it not become a thing of pride in Nigeria for one's name to appear on the list of chronic bad debtors of banks when the Central Bank of Nigeria, CBN, under Sanusi forced them to publish? Have we even gotten to the stage of countries from which voluntary declaration schemes, VDSs, were copied, in terms of tax administration, discipline and culture? Does the history of Nigeria fit in with such an arrangement at all? What about political will? Can the government question and even jerk those who finance their elections and campaigns to the courts? And so as the deadline expired on March 31, 2018, we started to see many interests crawl out of the woodworks to ask for extension. Some state finance commissioners claimed that people had just started to come forward and things like that, but it is a joke. What these interests have in mind is a total cancellation of the whole idea. The tax authorities are meant to start going after tax dodgers in a merciless manner as from April 1, and they promise that it will not be an April Fool's game. There are, however, a number of issues around the whole exercise, stuff that none of the consultants employed to work on the project will dare raise with their employers. I will get to those issues in a bit. We are very used to gathering in our conferences and committee meetings and generally deceiving ourselves in this country. We are used to starting programs that fail. It's our forte. Blind-sided focus on taxes. In the first place, whenever I have the chance, I always let those in government know that the focus on taxes itself is suboptimal. It's a way of reducing the problem so as to deflect from the larger issue. Nigeria is not only losing out on taxes, but on rates, duties, fees, fines, and everything in between. In fact, we are losing massive amounts daily, even from the proceeds of natural resources. At least 400,000 barrels per day of crude oil gets stolen from Nigeria's bowels with no solution in sight. The focus on taxes alone, and all that talk of Nigerians not paying their personal income taxes or Nigeria getting only 6% of its revenues from taxes, actually allows the thieves of our fees, fines, duties, rates, and proceeds of natural resources to get away with blue murder. Are we sure that we shouldn't be focused on getting all those other sources of income that focusing on taxes? Is there a likelihood that we may end up harassing and purloining small businesses that are barely surviving, to death in the name of tax enforcement? After all, taxes are to be payable on legitimate transactions. What are legitimate transactions in a country where most activities are illegitimate? Look around you today, most of the wealth you see flaunted, the big cars, the bigger houses, all those guys spending millions every night in the nightclubs, all the frequent travels even for religious pilgrimages and high-octane holidays, all the flexing, even the big contracts that are procured by very smart guys, are 99% illegitimate in Nigeria. Why don't we close the loopholes of illegitimacies? Are our political leaders interested? I doubt it. I always recall APC's first and only economic summit at the Hilton sometime around May 2015. The summit was organized by Fajemi and other eggheads. Oops, one of Fajemi's aides is actually named Egghead. They brought 1,000 other eggheads, professors from everywhere at home and in the diaspora and even more who worked with development agencies. They were tasked to find solutions to Nigeria's problems. I recall attending the Education Subcommittee session, which was chaired by Malam Balaji Abdullahi. While Balaji Abdullahi tried to steer the discussions towards the need for vocational education, youth and SS, the professors were obviously wrestling him to the ground, asking for more world-class universities. I was frustrated. I knew, just like Balaji, who would later become the APC spokesman, that the solution lied with a massive investment in Nigeria's youth and not in the acquisition of certificates. Why aren't you thinking of other income sources apart from taxes? I have explained this above. We must get all our revenues wherever they may be. In some cases, it may be much easier and more optimal with salutary effects on the economy, to get other forms of revenues than heat up the policy on tax issues. But that is not the main gist of that even. In one of the plenary sessions, after all the rambling, it was question time. A white lady in front of me was recognized. She was tired of hearing professor after professor